In Red Lights, a psychologist and her assistant study paranormal activity, which leads them to investigate a world-renowned psychic who has resurfaced years after his toughest critic mysteriously passed away.
So have you been working for Matheson long? Or are you a psychologist too, or a magician?
Actually, I'm a physicist.
So why do you do this?
Do what?
Investigate fake paranormal stuff?
Simon Silver, perhaps the most celebrated psychic of all time, will visit us here in just under 3 weeks. There will be a mad rush for tickets.
Are there no real challenges left out there?
Silver's a real challenge.
Silver's already been investigated.
Yeah, like 30 years ago. We should investigate him now.
I guess you could say I'm kind of a sucker for movies with paranormal plots, and I think that's because you can kind of make up your own rules, because even though there are some, like, unwritten laws to ghosts and paranormal entities and stuff like that, it's nothing concrete, obviously. You can kind of make it up to suit the needs of your movie, and I think that's very interesting. So that being said, I think it goes without saying that I was very, very excited to see Red Lights at the 2012 Sundance Film Festival. Tack on the fact that it is the next film from Rodrigo Cortés since doing Buried, which I loved. I loved his directing. I thought it was a very ballsy movie. I was just extremely excited to see Red Lights. Now, after having seen Red Lights, I have to say it's a very, very weird movie. In fact, I am still a little bit confused on my feelings about it, but I will do my best to explain them. For me personally, this movie is the type of movie that makes you want to like it no matter what. So even though it has flaws and there's things that you're like, well, but this was weird and this happened and I don't know if I liked that, it almost replies to you like, oh, but you liked this part, so you can overlook that, right? And it's true, I did like so much of it. The first hour, for example, or the first 2/3, I guess, maybe, are just fantastic. But then, I don't want to say it falls apart, because it doesn't. It almost just feels like it gets confused itself. I don't even know how to explain it, but weird things happen, which I will get to, obviously, and I will go more in depth in the spoiler section at the end of this review, so I don't have to give anything away to you guys, but something happens in the movie where it just kind of throws you off, or threw me off at least. But even with all the things that I thought were weird or that I didn't like, I think it was outweighed by the things I did like, and so therefore, overall, I did enjoy Red Lights. So let's get a little bit more deep into Red Lights, starting off with the plot. The plot was interesting, and it's really right up my alley. I think when this movie started, I thought it was going to be my favorite movie of all time because it was such a cool idea. You've got these paranormal investigators who go around and disprove paranormal activity, I guess you could say. And this really interests me because if you don't know anything about Harry Houdini, for example, he spent, I would say, the better part of his career doing exactly that. And I always thought that was really interesting. So when I realized, like, oh, that's what this movie's about, it just blew my mind. I was like, this movie is gonna be awesome. And as it continues, the story not only remains interesting, but maybe gets even more interesting. But like I said, it kind of gets weird and murky towards the end and really throws off the whole movie. But I think the problem is that it felt a little underdeveloped, which isn't true because Rodrigo Cortés spent a long time, apparently like a year and a half, researching this movie, like what he wanted to put into it, all the paranormal stuff, and so that was very well developed, but maybe the research was done well, but putting together the movie wasn't developed as well, because it almost felt like, and I don't know if this is the case obviously, but it almost felt like they didn't have enough time to figure out every aspect of the movie before they started shooting, and they kind of went into it winging it in some places. That's what it felt like. But overall, like I said, I did appreciate most of the story, if not the whole thing. It's really hard to explain, but it definitely was interesting and kept me interested. And I liked that it was kind of like the anti-Ghostbusters, which is ironic that Sigourney Weaver's in it, because they go around to, like, make house calls with people that think they have ghosts, but rather than actually there being ghosts, there aren't ghosts, you know, so it's kind of cool like that. Going into the directing, like I said, that kind of ties in with the whole, it felt a little bit rushed or underdeveloped, and I don't know, once again, if that's the case. I would imagine it's not, because apparently a lot of research went into it. Like I said, Rodrigo Cortés spent a long time working on it, so I would think that it was developed well, but it just felt like they ran in with a camera and they were like, all right, what are we going to do with this exactly? We're going to do this and that and this and that. And also, a problem I had with it is that there were a lot of cheap scares in the movie, or maybe not a lot of, but some cheap scares, and I'm just never a fan of that, and I feel like that kind of cheapens down the movie, and I was kind of surprised by that because the rest of it felt like it was very original, or at least it had some kind of like dignity to it, and then you throw in the cheap scares and it kind of makes it a little weird. But as far as the directing goes, you can tell that Rodrigo Cortés, while maybe a little misguided, that's kind of what I could say, a little misguided, he does have some major talent, because this movie it's really cool. Like, the tone of it is awesome. The visuals are great. I thought that, like, the movie itself was awesome. It's just I had problems with, I guess it's problems with the plot. I don't know. I mean, both of them are Rodrigo Cortés, so regardless, any way you throw it, it's him. But I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain, and I feel like it might get a little easier when I can talk spoilers at the end of this review. And acting-wise, I thought everyone did a good job. I would say nothing specifically stand out, but it did seem like everyone had a good time making it. Even Sigourney Weaver, who I would say seemed the least, like, involved in it. She felt like she was just a little bit outside looking in sometimes, but, you know, I don't know if maybe that was just part of the character and it came off a little bit weird to me, but overall I would say it seemed like everyone had a good time making it. Cillian Murphy's awesome. I thought that he was really perfect for this type of movie. Like, he looked the part, he fit in very well, and Elizabeth Olsen I thought was good. Robert De Niro, weird. It almost felt like Rodrigo Cortés was so floored by having Robert De Niro in his movie. It came across that way. It almost felt like you were supposed to be like, oh my god, it's Robert De Niro, because there are some shots that just, you know, make it look like, oh my god, look who it is on the screen. And really, it's like, it shouldn't be about stuff like that, you know what I mean? So it's kind of weird, but I do remember feeling that way, and you can sense it in the trailer too. It almost feels like, look who we got for our movie. So, I don't know, I thought that was kind of funny, but I thought that he seemed like he was having a good time too, because it's definitely something that is different for Robert De Niro. But overall, very difficult to explain this movie. Hopefully, I sort of did. I think, like I said, I'll have a better time explaining it in just a moment in the spoiler section. So, that being said, we're going to talk some spoilers now. So, if you have not seen Red Lights, please do not watch the rest of this review, because I'm going to spoil the whole damn thing for you. And it's a movie with big twists. You don't want to know what happens. Trust me, wait until you can see Red Lights and decide for yourself if you like it, because it's definitely a weird one, and I'm really curious to see what people think of it, so please go see Red Lights and then come back and watch the rest of this review. Here we go. A little daunting task here to talk about the end of Red Lights, but let's do it. So, first things first, I'd like to mention that I saw the twist of Silver not actually being blind coming, not from a mile away, but maybe a half mile away. It just seemed like, is he not going to be blind? I thought that somewhere in the middle of the movie, I guess. And I was really surprised when that happened, because usually I can't pick up stuff like that. Now, not to say I'm not intelligent, but sometimes those things take me by surprise, or I would say very often they do, and it really didn't take me by surprise. I appreciated the fact that such a massive twist was in a movie, because it kind of took me back to early M. Night Shyamalan days, almost, but it was, for some reason, something I could see coming. Something I did not see coming, though, was Buckley having powers, or being psychic, whatever you want to call it. I did not see that coming at all, but that is possibly telling to the fact that the ending was so weird and kind of murky, I guess is a word you could use. It was just so all over the place out of nowhere. It's like you're kind of riding along and then all of a sudden, like a drop on a roller coaster that you didn't see coming, and you can't even barely gather yourself to understand what's happening. And while I can appreciate everything, I really can appreciate everything that I witnessed, everything that happened in this movie, like at the end when things went crazy, it just seemed like it was too much, way too much explanation of stuff. Like, it went on for so long that you were kind of like, okay, I'm with you, now what, you know? And really, it turns out that's just a really long ending to the movie. But also, it kind of raises questions. Like, I haven't looked into this movie enough to find, like, if there's any plot holes, like major ones, but I feel like the movie blew itself open, and if you look into it, I feel like there's a lot of little plot holes and stuff. Maybe I'm wrong, I haven't looked into it, like I said, but it just felt that way. It literally felt like the movie was vulnerable at that point, and you could just poke at it and pick at it and figure things out that they might not have realized. And so, for that reason, the ending was just weird. That's all I can say. I can't say if I liked it or disliked it. And I guess that's a good thing. It's better than not liking it, right? The fact that I can't tell if I liked or disliked it is certainly better than knowing I didn't like it. but definitely strange. Two other things I'd like to mention. The first is a quick one. The homeless woman that like spits on the car, I thought that was really weird, and that almost threw me off the whole movie. I know it's a tiny little element, but I was like, what the heck just happened? And a bigger scene, which I think a lot of people, well, I know a lot of people were talking about at Sundance, but I think a lot of people are going to be like, what the heck? Was, and of course, unless it was edited since I saw it many, many months ago, the bathroom fight scene. First things first, it was too long, and it felt like Cillian Murphy should have been a pulp, you know, by the end of that scene, because it was very violent. Like, if I remember correctly, he gets slammed into, like, multiple sinks and toilets and stuff, and they get blasted to bits. So it was crazy, and I mean, it was a cool scene, but it felt out of place in this movie. Like, maybe in another type of movie, like a big action movie, it would have been better, because it was really well done in that sense. But for this movie, it felt very out of place, because I felt like Cillian Murphy should have been dead as a doornail. And the fact that he was not dead, but the guy left him, was very weird. It was like, oh, I thought you were going to kill him after all that you just did. But then you just were like, yeah, that's what I thought, and left. It was very, very strange, very out of place. But that is leading up to the end of the movie where things get very strange. So I guess, in hindsight, that scene really isn't that strange at all if you watch the whole movie. But overall, like I said, I did enjoy Red Lights, and I can appreciate everything that I saw. It just felt like it was a little misguided and a little bit underdeveloped, even though I, once again, don't know that it was underdeveloped. So, hopefully, I was able to convey my feelings for this movie. The fact that I'm all over the place and confused myself says a lot, because the movie is like that, so I think that's appropriate. But let me know in the comments what you thought of Red Lights. I am so excited to see what other people thought of this movie, to help me sort of understand it myself. But if you're going to talk anything spoilers, please put a big spoiler tag, because this movie has some major spoilers, obviously. So please let me know in the comments what you thought. Keep a spoiler tag in it if you're going to talk spoilers. But let me know anything that you want about Red Lights, literally anything, because there's so much to talk about. And the fact that there is so much to talk about, I think, makes it a better movie. So that's good. But just let me know anything you want about Red Lights. And that's pretty much it.
Are you challenging me? Are you questioning my power?